Hello and welcome to this live broadcast across a Facebook group, Facebook page, and our YouTube channel. My name is Theo Vandor. I'm the executive producer of Time of the Sixth Sun. In the window below is Nikki Luna Williams, who is the creator of this amazing series. And our guest tonight, joining us from the United States, is Bill Lyon. Hello, Bill. So nice to have you with us.
Oh, good to see you again.
Oh, it's great. It's great. It's so nice to see you. And I remember I met Bill for the first time when Nikki and I went to Australia at the end of 2017 to finish the film, and Bill was staying at the house with us where we that we rented, and there was just fantastic stories. So you're in for an absolute treat with the stories Bill's going to share with you this evening. But before I start, I'm just going to bring up Bill's websites here so you can find out more about Dr. Bill Lyon. He's got two websites, spirittalkers.com, that we're going to speak about, and it's the name of this live broadcast tonight, and also wmslion.com, which is Bill's personal website. So you can have a look at those. And if you are new to this and wondering what is Time of the Sixth Sun all about, well, we've got a movie and an 8-part documentary series that is free for a limited time. And if you'd like to register to watch that, it starts again every Tuesday. So if you've got friends that would like to watch it, you're able to do so. Just ask them to go to timeofthesixthsunlaunch.com, enter their name and email address. That's it. We'll send an email, and then we will send them the emails every day with the link to watch the movie and the 8-episode docuseries over the next 9 days. So it's really easy for people to sign up. So we've got, I think this week alone, 3,000 people watching the movie and the docuseries. And it's a big thanks to all of you that keep sharing it out there and letting people know that it is available for free. And we did it last year in 2 huge releases, one in April, one in November. And we had, I think, 70,000 go into the April one, and then I think another 80,000 to go into the November one. But it was just so much work to answer all of the emails that people sent to you, and we just got completely overwhelmed. So this year we thought, let's just do it in small, more manageable times, and we won't absolutely exhaust ourselves like we did last time. So Nikki, over to you, lovely.
Fantabuloso. So good to have you back, Bill. I was thinking, it's ages since I interviewed you, but of course we met each other 2 years ago, so that was fun. First of all, maybe start off by telling our viewers your name and where you come from, where in the world you're from, Bill.
My name's Bill Lyon. I'm from Mother Earth.
And you have a Lakota name. Is it a medicine name?
Yes, I was given a Lakota name in a ceremony with Wallace Blackout, and it's Hohu, Hohu, Sha, Sha. Hohu means bone, Sha means red in Lakota. So bone red in Lakota linguistics, but red bone in American translation.
And so why did they give you that name?
Because they had several reasons, but the main reason was because I'm white on the outside, but red on the inside.
Great name. I love that. Red one. So how's life right now with you? I mean, the world has just totally changed in the last few months from what we knew. And do you know what's going on at all with the Native American tribes? Because the news we get over here is that the Native tribes have been hit really hard. What are you hearing on your end?
That was mainly with the Navajo Nation. They are also the largest reservation, and I think they've to date have had over 1,000 deaths down there from the virus. But in South Dakota, at Wombly, where Godfrey lived and stuff, they don't have a problem.
Okay. Cool.
So it's not that widespread, but I don't believe. But you don't hear reports either from on the news, basically, about what's going on the reservations. You have to, dig deep to find that out.
You have to call them.
You have to talk to them.
Yeah, for sure. And so the tribes that are having a problem, because when I spoke to my friend Aquala from the Havre Supply in the Grand Canyon, he said they're hit really hard as well. So is that due to it being an isolated, tight community, or is it more due to sort of poverty and lack of medical services?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
I'm asking why maybe some communities have been hit harder. So
probably because they gather together more often.
Yeah, I think so.
Basically.
Yeah. So, but as an anthropologist, you've spent the best part of 50 years. I think it was the early 70s. You went out. You went and spent time with Native American people and started to study the medicine people there. Is it mostly medicine men you worked with, or did you also medicine women?
No, I mostly worked with the male shamans, and the female anthropologists, they work with the female shamans.
Oh, okay.
So
are there different ways of working? Sorry.
Beg pardon?
Do they have different ways of working, the medicine men and medicine women?
I think everyone has its own individual way of working. Each person you met. I mean, Wallace Blackout, he was, very different than Godfrey Chips, and they were both Lakota shamans.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us about meeting Wallace Blackout? What was your first encounter with him?
Well, it's a slightly long story, but I'll go into it real quick. I had a friend named Charles Cameron who came to Ashland, Oregon, where I was teaching at Southern Oregon College at the time in the early 70s. And he was replacing an English prof, and he came from Denver. And he told me that he knew this medicine man who lived in Denver by the name of Wallace Blackout. So I arranged for Blackout to come to our school and do a 5-day class at the end of summer session in August. And that was arranged for 1978. So in the summer of 1978, we had this class scheduled with Wallace Blackout. We were going to do a sweat lodge and a nippy ceremony. And Wallace showed up in my office 15 minutes before the class started. That's how I met him. We went in the first day. I told the students, because it met on the campus the first day. Then I told them where we would be meeting out in the field for the last 4 days. And then I let Wallace speak. And they were asking him, questions about what the ceremony was and things like that. And this one girl raised her hand and said, "What do we wear to the sweat lodge?" And Wallace said, "That birthday suit that you were born in." Well, I knew that wasn't all. I knew they didn't come naked to the lodge. They had towels and swimsuits and things like that. But nevertheless, by 8 o'clock the next morning, I was called into the dean's office. And it's like, what are you doing running a class where students get naked, And I said, no, that's not going to happen. And he was kind of disgusted right at the start with the class. Anyway, so we went out, met in the field on Tuesday, second day. By Thursday, we were getting ready to, the lodge had been built and we had gathered the stones and everything. And so we lit the fire under the stones to heat them up for the lodge. And I asked Wallace, I said, how long is it going to take to heat these stones up? He said about 3 hours. And I said, okay, I'll go back to the college for a little bit. I have some enrollments to straighten out and things like that. And I'll be back out within an hour. Well, no sooner had I left than the smoke from the fire was spotted by some forest rangers up on the mountaintop. And at that time of year, it doesn't rain in August. So everything's really dry and you have to have a fire permit to have a fire. Well, I had forgotten to get a fire permit from the rangers. So they called down to the headquarters and said, do you have a fire permit for this particular area? And they said, no. So they sent 2 rangers over there to check it out. Well, by the time the rangers came, I was gone. And so they came down, drove down to the site in this truck. And what they saw were, 40 half-naked students running around in a field. And they didn't know what was, that was just a little bit odd. So one ranger stayed by the radio in the truck and the other ventured down to this whole group of kids. And he came there and he asked who's in charge, and they pointed to Wallace. And so this ranger went to Wallace and said, "May I see your fire permit?" And Wallace said, "What that for?" And he said, "Because fires are a danger here in the summer. Everything's dry." And immediately Wallace says, "Oh no, this sacred fire, no harm come from sacred fire." Well, that didn't fly with the ranger. And he started pushing on Wallace and saying, "No, you have to go to the ranger station and get a fire permit." Well, the more he pushed on Wallace, the dumber Wallace got. That was just one of Wallace's techniques. And so Wallace would be asked, "Permit, what that word mean?" That kind of stuff. And it just kept getting worse and worse on this ranger. I mean, he was just getting more and more frustrated. And finally he said, okay, I'll write you out a temporary permit. Well, he could have done that when he first came there, but he didn't. And but this time, in a completely, sky with no clouds at all, this big black cloud formed right over the Inipi. And it started to rain. And it was raining so hard that this ranger, the students had to hold up a tarp over the ranger's head to write out the fire permit.
That's so funny.
And that ranger left in a hurry. Well,
I bet. That's beautiful.
2 years later, well, let me back up. So at the end of the summer session, I put in for an award, a creative award for this class, and it won the West Coast division. Then it went to the nationals that included Canada, and it won the nationals. So it was deemed the most creative summer school course in 1978. That made the dean happy. So happy he went back and picked up the plaque and so forth. So we just started having it every summer. We started scheduling it. 2 years later, on the first day of the class, I told this story for the first time about this ranger having to write out the fire permit under a tarp when it was raining. And after the class, this woman came up to me, middle-aged woman. She said, "That was my husband. I was on the radio at the headquarters at the ranger station when they called that fire in, and I sent him and another fellow out there. And he never told me anything about a rain." I said, "Oh, good. I never talked to him. I would really like to talk to him. So ask him if he'll tell me about his experience." She went home next day. She came out. We were in the field, and she came up to me and said, "He won't talk to you." 2 years later, he had never told his wife, and he wasn't going to talk to me either.
Wow, you scared him silly.
So you don't mess around with those spirits, because if you come and do that, they're gonna teach you a lesson.
Yeah.
And he got educated from a spirit, basically.
That's a lovely story. And was Wallace Blackout, did he like to play around like that? Was he a fun character?
Oh, he was really fun. And the spirits would play around too. That to me, it really is part of a real shaman. If they don't have a really good sense of humor, if they don't like jokes and like to play jokes, they're not really in the game. That's my point of view. And the spirits will come in there and play jokes also.
Yeah, the mischievous.
They have a really great sense of humor.
Yeah.
I just go ahead.
Yeah. So so the young folk, are they like Wallace Black Elk? He's the grandson, is that correct, of Wallace Black Elk Speaks, the infamous
warrior?
Warrior?
He was he was very vague about that. I mean, I don't know exactly. I never did go back and check records to see exactly what their relationship was, because Wallace claims when he talks about being brought up and taught by, his grandfather and his grandmother, he said, I have 11 grandfathers and 11 grandmothers that taught me.
Okay.
So I don't know where Nick Black Elk fits in, but I know he was also trained by Nick Black Elk.
Okay. Doesn't matter really, does it?
No, it just matters whether he got it or not.
Yeah, exactly. And so, a lot of what I've been seeing is that a lot of the young kids living in tribal communities don't want to walk in the shoes of their fathers or carry on the tribal traditions. So that's obviously a problem, I guess, now. So is there a way to encourage them to carry on the spiritual traditions?
It's a tough life.
Yeah.
To walk that red road is a tough life. And of course you're going, against the culture. And most of the reservation, Indians have started going to church, and they see this as the work of the devil and so forth and so on. So yes, it's definitely, it almost was wiped out at the turn of the century, but since then it's actually coming back. There are many more medicine men today on the reservation than there were back in the 1920s, say.
Oh wow. Well, that's a good thing.
So it's coming, but it's not, they're not clamoring after it for sure.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's a tough road to follow.
Right.
So the shamans that you met when you were first walked with this in the early 70s and 80s, things must have changed a lot of shaman 50 years ago and shaman now. If we just take a look at the modern world, it's almost unrecognizable in half a century. So are the shamans still working in the way they were?
Each shaman is different. Each shaman's way is different because their way is told by the spirits. That is, they go on a vision quest, they catch a spirit helper, and that spirit helper tells you how you're going to walk the red road.
Okay.
So no two shamans are really alike at all in the way they do the ceremonies, maybe in the way they set them up or what their altar looks like. It's all individualized. And yes, there's a common theme. They all have spirit helpers and they can talk to these spirit helpers and so forth. But there's no, overall general pattern that's seen in every shamanic ceremony. They're all different. I mean, one shaman, if he has a altar for pipe ceremonies, and it'll be that same ceremony set up every time. Yeah. But you go next door and another man's got a different altar.
Mm. And does the altar really depict how a ceremony is going to go? I remember Pete, as an apprentice of Godfrey Chips, talking about, the first time he was expected to lay out an altar, which actually was when we were together at Zachary. Yeah.
The altar layout is a requirement to call the spirits. If you don't set the altar up right, they won't come in. Oh. It's really that simple. Wow. So you need to follow the instructions that you were given of how to set that altar up, and then they'll come in. Otherwise, they won't. If you decide you want to put up a different color flag or something, they won't come in. They're really strict about that.
How far back do these instructions go? Do they come from the ancestors, their grandfathers, or?
No, they come from what they learn from the elders is just the basic attitude towards it all. Okay. Like you don't come there with a bunch of doubts in your mind. That kind of thing is what they learn. But as far as performing, that's dictated by the spirit helper.
Okay.
Or helpers.
uppers.
Mhm.
May I jump in with a question, please?
Yes, do.
Daniel has asked, and this is actually very valid, and I'm really grateful that people ask questions like this, because we have a global audience and people may not know. We know, but they may not know. So Daniel's asking, who is Wallace and what is a shaman? So I think let's just take a step back and help people understand exactly what we're chatting about.
Wallace Blackout was a Lakota shaman. He's passed away now, and he started in the early 1900s, and they started training him at 5 years old in the sacred ways. That is, by taking him to the ceremonies and having him participate in the ceremonies and so forth. And the other little kids were out there running around, but they had picked him out and started early on him. And shamanism is really the kind of global term that at least American anthropologists use for human beings that can go into an altered state of consciousness and make contact with spirit beings. Now, myself, I don't really like the word altered states of consciousness. They use that a lot, but it's more basic that you have to be in your heart. We have two ways of thinking. You can think with your mind, that thing between your ears, or you can think with your heart. And when you're a shaman and you're praying to spirits, those prayers have to come from the heart. If they come from your head, they won't come, or will be answered. So it's very simple. It's not a complex thing on one level. Mm-hmm. It's you diving deeper into your own being. And the deeper you dive, we call that altered states. A little deeper. Well, it's another state. A little deeper. Not. That's really not the way of thinking to me. It's just a matter of how far are you going to go into your heart. Mm. And the further you go, the more you're going to get closer to the Creator.
Yeah. How deep do you dare?
I mean, well, Jesus said in Luke 17:21, behold, the kingdom of God is within you. Well, that means you can dive in deep and experience the Creator. And we're only beings that can do that.
Yeah.
Horses don't do that. Cows don't do that. Humans are really, really special. We're really sent here to take care of this planet. Yeah. That's our job. But we have to be in our hearts to do that. We have to live from our heart. And of course, most people live from their minds. And that's the big problem as far as I'm concerned. You want peace on the earth? Well, it's already in you. You realize it. Everybody realizes it, and we'll have peace on earth.
Yeah. Doing a bit of a lousy job at the moment, aren't we?
Well, I think this coronavirus is kind of pushing us to the edge too.
Yeah, I agree. So the other person who we haven't talked about is Godfrey Chips, and it was through Stu and our meeting at Zaka Lake, which we have talked about a bit on these shows.
Okay.
That's where we met, I was going to say Benjamin, but this doesn't sound right, Godfrey Chips. And he also was chosen very young, wasn't he? They recognized him as a medicine man. He had a long history. So his great-grandfather was medicine man and mentor to Crazy Horse. Is that correct?
Yes. He came from a lineage of 7 generations of medicine men in his family. He was the 7th.
Wow. And so he didn't need to go through any initiations from what I remember. He was just chosen. They recognized him. Is that correct?
Well, they recognized that he was going to get the power early on. They saw that in him. And again, like Nick, they had him coming to ceremonies when he was, 5, 6 years old. And he performed his first vision quest and caught his first power when he was 13 years old.
Mm. Great rite of initiation.
Mm-hmm.
And will you please, Bill, explain what a vision quest is for those that don't know?
Okay, well, that is where you go out and isolate yourself for 4 days, and in order to catch a spirit. Now, the way traditionally you do that is you have to work up to that 4-day vision quest. That is, The first year you go out on a vision quest for 1 day. Second year you go out 2 days. Third year you got 3 days. And then on the fourth year, you go out for the 4 days to catch a spirit. So you're out there without any food or any water or any contact with anybody for 4 days. And usually that breaks down your ego enough that you make contact.
Yeah.
Some people, maybe they have to go 5, 6 times before they catch a spirit. It's not a guarantee that when you go out there the first time for 4 days, you'll get one.
And vision, because visions come for people when they go into a total fasting like that, and being on your own, that can send people a bit nutty. So that brings on the visions. Hence,
right. Yeah, it's you shut down your systems.
Yeah.
You start, getting really hungry.
So back to the story about Godfrey chips. How do they recognize in a child if they have what it's going to take to commune with the spirits? Because the Kogi in Colombia, they also do that. They're chosen very young as to who's going to be a mama. And then the boys are kept in that dark place for 14 years or something, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And trained.
Well, I would have to say the spirits tell them.
Okay.
The spirits will come in and say, that's the child that it will get the power.
Okay.
And they go with what the spirit says.
I love that they're in charge.
But if they're in there deep enough, they'll see it in the child.
Yeah.
They'll see that innocence and so forth and whatever.
Mm.
So, yeah.
So in 2010, we ended up gathering about a dozen of us around the lake, and you had come with Godfrey, and we had come there to do ceremony for a week. And one of the ceremonies was to call down, let's say, funds from the higher realms in order for light worker projects to take place on the planet. So it was a calling in ceremony called the 5 Sticks ceremony, correct? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I remember us all congregating around a cabin, and we waited for about 4 hours sitting in the forest, 4 or 5 hours, while you and Godfrey were in the cabin, absolutely sealing it with black gaffer tape and black material and card, so that the room was absolutely pitch black when we shut the door. And I think you'd been smudging it for hours with cedar,
sage and sweetgrass.
yeah.
Cedar, yes.
So by the time we went in there, it was pregnant with, it was full on, just experiencing that atmosphere in there. Can you tell us why you, first of all, black everything out like that?
Because it eases the coming and going of the spirits. That's
Okay.
it. They come much better, much easier in the dark. And complete dark is the best. So if you're going to hold a ceremony, you make it as dark as you can
And as easy as possible for them.
Yeah.
And so can you tell me any more about that?
Yeah, they'll come if it's in the light. It's not particularly that way. There one time Godfrey's grandfather was made to do a ceremony with the lights on. They came in and they wanted him to leave the lights on, and they did, and the spirits came in.
Okay. And the very first time that let's finish with this ceremony, what happened, because I remember we came in and we sat down in a circle, about 10 of us, and you and Godfrey, and we started prayers, and Stu called down the intentions for what he wanted to anchor in this world, his company, Podder. And then suddenly they came. And I've done a few ceremonies in my life, but I tell you, the hairs on the back of my neck, they are so loud. They're not light-footed, are they?
The Lakota spirits are really rambunctious. They are loud. They come in and bang all around and stomp all around, and the house shakes. And
it's like they've each drunk 2 bottles of whiskey, Teo.
Anyway, it's you get used to it, but the first time you're in there, the hair will stand up on the back of your neck. It certainly did on mine. The first time I went to one of Godfrey's ceremony, my hair went way up on the back of my neck when those spirits came in. And
So
they
tell us
ball of
about
lights too.
Tell us about that ceremony. That was the first time you met Godfrey, yeah?
Mm-hmm. What had happened was I was working with Wallace Blackout, and he called me from Denver one day and asked me to take him to the reservation. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So I drove over to Denver and picked him up, and we drove up to Wombly, South Dakota, where the Chips family has a 160-acre plot of land that his great-grandfather got. And so we drove out onto that land, and it turned out that he had come for a vision quest. He was asking, he came there to have Godfrey put him up on a vision quest. And Wallace was going for the final power, what he called the impenetrable medicine is the way he talked about it. Wow. And that was the healing medicine that could heal anything. Wow. Usually when you get a spirit helper will be able to heal just a certain items, like maybe cancer or polio or broken bones or whatever. But with the impenetrable medicine, and it takes years and years and years to reach that point, and Godfrey had it. He had risen to the 16th level, and he held the impenetrable medicine. So Wallace picked him to sponsor him to have him put him up on a vision quest. So we went there, and I can't remember exactly, when Wallace went up or what, but anyway, while I was there, he was going to conduct a healing ceremony on a fellow by the name of Marco Ridomi. He was from Italy. He was a photographer, but at the time he lived in New York City. And he came there for a healing. And it turned out it was you mentioned the 5-stick ceremony. That 5-stick ceremony they usually do before they do a healing ceremony. And the 5-stick spirits will come in and tell them how many nights of healing ceremonies they conduct. And in Marco's case, it was 4. It's never over 4. If it's going to be more than 4, you have to come back and do it again. So they'll only do it at max over 4 nights. So Marco Ridomi went through this 4-night ceremony, and even though he didn't tell anyone, he had AIDS. Basically, was what his problem was. And after those 4 days, he went back, and his AIDS was gone, and he never got it. It never came back for his entire life. So that impenetrable medicine can cure anything, basically.
Wow, that's amazing. An amazing story. And if you've met Godfrey Chips, I mean, he was such a large man, wasn't he? He was larger than life, large physically. And he had, we dispute this. He told me he had 26 children. You say it's 23.
So this is the book that Marco put out after his healing.
Ah.
And it's full of photographs from the res. Let's see if we can pick one of, typical.
Well, wow.
Oh my gosh.
Just typical dirty children, on the res running around.
Was that Godfrey as a child? No.
And there's pictures of the Inipi. Yep. And, a buffalo on the altar, things like that. So there's
Are there any photos? Are there anything of Godfrey?
Photographs in there of the whole, situation there on the reservation.
Yeah. And were there any pictures of Godfrey in there? Godfrey Chips?
Yes.
It's kind of nice because we've spoken about him.
Probably on the first page. Yep.
Yeah, that's Godfrey.
Let me bring this full screen. There you go.
Wow, he was a slimmer man then. What are the black spots on him? The 3 black marks and one on the other side.
That's from piercing at a Sundance.
Ah, yeah, Sundance.
So that's a Sundance picture. He's dancing in that eagle whistle he's blowing during a Sundance.
Wow.
And dancing
Great photo.
Bill, would you? I mean, I'm aware of what happens at the Sundance Festival, but would you share that, because that is an incredible thing for people that don't know to hear about what happens at the Sundance Festival.
The Sundance is a thank you ceremony to the spirits, and they give a little bit of their flesh, a little bit of their blood as an offering. So the climax of your dance is they will take up a small pinch of your skin and run a skewer through it and tie this rope, or, well, it's usually a rope. Earlier on, it was rawhide. And we'll tie it up to the central pole. And then you dance backwards from the pole until you can break free with those skewers popping through your skin. And yeah, it's painful, but it's not, it's not deadly or whatever. I mean, it's just a little bit of pain as a sacrifice for all of the help you get from your spirit helpers.
And what does the central pole represent? Usually it's a tree, isn't it?
Yeah, the tree of life.
Tree of life, okay. That supports us.
Yeah.
And how many have you done? Many? I'm sure you have. It's a silly question, but you've done many Sundances?
No. Nope. I did one.
Okay.
And what happened after Wallace was there for 5 or 6 years doing his Nippy ceremony every summer in Ashland, he started a Sundance there for whites.
Okay.
Well, that was a taboo.
Yeah.
And Russell Means found out about it. So he was going to come over there and stop that Sundance and, not allow it to happen, until he found out that Wallace Black Elk was running the Sundance. And when they had the occupation of Wounded-D, you remember when they went in there and got, occupied and under fire from the government for whatever, 2 weeks or whatever it was, Wallace was in there running the sweat lodges. He was the medicine man that was running the sweat lodges during the occupation.
Okay.
On the inside there. So once Russell found out it was Wallace who was doing it, he didn't come around for sure. And that Sundance is still going on today in Ashland, Oregon. Anyway, back to the point. I did it one year over there when Godfrey came to run the Sundance.
Okay.
Only we did it at night. He held a night Sundance, which I had never heard of, had never seen, whatever. And we danced at night, and we didn't pierce. So that's my experience with the Sundance. It was a night Sundance. That's completely usually unheard of. Yeah.
And so what's the difference between a moon dance and a night Sundance? It's the moon dance for women.
Yeah. They're just different ceremonies, that's all. I don't know.
I think the moon dance is for women.
Yeah, but I don't know exactly, what the moon dance is for particularly.
We'll find out.
Okay.
Or people can write in and let us know. That would be fabulous. So I thought Godfrey had 26 children. You say he had 23, or 3 that you didn't know about.
It could have been 26. I always thought it was 23.
I remember asking him, saying, "Oh, wish you were my dad." And as I said that, I suddenly got very emotional and started crying. And he hugged me, and he said that he would adopt me. And he said, "If you come back in August of next year, I'll adopt you." But I was so broke, I didn't have any spare money, and I couldn't get back there. But Pete and Stu said, if I had gone back there, he would have adopted me.
Yeah. He has there is an adoption ceremony.
Okay, how does that go?
I don't remember exactly how that goes.
I'll find out about that too. So, out of all those kids, which ones have any of them since he's passed, which has been 6 years or something now, a bit more?
Yes, since 2014.
So 6 years.
Well, it's a rather sad story. Usually, what happens is that the power goes to the oldest son.
Yeah.
The firstborn son. In Godfrey's case, he was actually the thirdborn son. He had 2 older brothers, and but he got the power. It came to him. Anyway, none of Godfrey's children stepped forward, male or female.
They have to literally step forward, and
they have to acknowledge that they want to go on vision quests and get the power, that they would like to get a spirit helper.
Okay.
And none of them came around. And when Godfrey came down with cancer in 2013, he just said, "I'm leaving." He would not go to be treated, to have the cancer removed by another medicine man. He said, "I'm leaving. None of you want to become, vision questers and get a spirit helper." And he just said, "I'll be there from the other side to help you when you make up your mind to do it."
Wow.
So we still have, there are 2 now, one of his daughters and his oldest son, claiming that they're going to go on a vision quest this year, and I doubt it's going to happen. Because I think it's more talk than sincerity. Just from what I've seen over the years.
Yeah. It's such a legacy what you've created. So let's hear about the books that you wrote. The Sacred Way of the Lakota, which is the book you wrote with Black Elk, and then an encyclopedia. Well, I'll let you tell us, and then the encyclopedia.
Okay. The Blackout Book. What happened is eventually in 1985, just when I got promoted to a full tenured professor, I left. I walked out because Wallace had asked me earlier, a couple of years even, to just come and travel with him and go around and organize his workshops and events and things like that. And so I left in 1985. I went down to, I got an adjunct position at the University of California, Berkeley. And by that time I had, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 tapes, recordings of Wallace talking at different events. Every time he went to an event, I tape recorded what he had to say to the people there. And then I transcribed all of those tapes. And no particular talk really covered one event fully. There would be bits and pieces of this event and this talk and bits in this talk. And so I had to, I transcribed it all. And then I cut it all the transcriptions up and put those pieces that were talking about the sweat lodge in one pile, and those pieces that were talking about the problems or whatever, or,
I know what that's like.
Okay, and that's how the book. So the book is really Wallace Black Elk's words that he gave, in his public talks. There's nothing of me in there. I don't appear in the book other than every once in a while I'll put in brackets to interpret what he said more clearly for the reader. But no, I'm not in the book at all. It's all just directly from Wallace's mouth. So that makes it really special.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very hard book to find like that. Most time the author also appears in there. The Blackout Book is Blackout Speaks book that Nehart wrote is somewhat like that, but Nehart fabricated the first and the last chapters of that book. So most people don't know that, but that's true.
So the book that you wrote, The Sacred Ways of the Lakota by Black Elk, as spoken by Black Elk, is that available?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was put out by Harper and Row.
Okay. So do you want to make a note of that, Teo, and put it up in the column for people?
Yeah, I'm just looking. I'm looking on Bill's website. So
Yeah, there's probably photos of it on my website.
yeah, there are photos. So I'll put up the link to the website there, and then people can go and see that.
Great. And so then you wrote the encyclopedia after you spent that time with Blackout. Tell us about that, because that was about healing, Native American medicine healing. But then you did a revised copy 2 years later with including shamanism.
Well, they're two different. They're two different encyclopedias. There's an encyclopedia of shamanism and an encyclopedia of healing. And what happened by the time I reached Berkeley, I started digging into the historical accounts of people who had witnessed shamanism. And Berkeley is, an incredible library, and anything and everything that was ever written is pretty much there. And I accumulated hundreds of articles that I would go to old journals and copy out of and things. And all of those went into the healing and the shamanism encyclopedias.
Okay.
So if you want to come up against, if you want to check out what a nippy is, you go there, or sweat lodge and that kind of thing. So it's all, discombobbled basically, because it's like a dictionary.
So rather than Google.
And so I took all of that material, and basically those two encyclopedias were really a preparation for the Spirit Talkers book. And that was that's it. Oh. The cover is sitting here behind me. And
got a slide as well. There you go.
Yeah.
Much better.
Anyway, that book is the accumulation of all the effort that I put into collecting all of the accounts. And when you read that book, you'll note that anything and everything I say in there is pretty much has a reference to it.
Yeah. That is one thick book. I have to say, I haven't got through it.
Book. It's amazing, there's over 1,000 references in there.
Yeah.
Because I just wasn't going to say anything that they were witnessed this, that, kind of happening. They witnessed this particular medicine power manifesting without you being able to go and see where it's written in the records.
Yeah, yeah. So did you ever write a book about Godfrey, or was it be included in Spirit Talkers?
No, I never. There is probably enough material recorded out there to do that, but that's not something I've taken on yet.
No.
But the Spirit Talkers book was really an effort to put to rest the notion that medicine powers are nothing more than superstition. They just call it primitive superstition in anthropology.
Yeah.
And that's not true. If you go out there in the field and you go to these ceremonies, you'll see that it's not superstition at all, that these kind of incredible things happen.
Yeah.
Wallace, used to say, the spirits can do whatever they want. And that's about it.
Gosh. Power of the spirit. We know so little about that world, really, in the Western world.
Yes. Early on, everyone sought a spirit helper.
Yeah.
If you were a hunter, you sought a spirit helper that could help you tell you where the game were located. When you went hunting, then you could ride out and there would be the game.
Yeah. And that also was the role of a shaman, was to travel between worlds so the spirits could tell them where the game was, or where the raiders were coming from, or what the weather was going to be like.
Well, like I said, everyone sought and got usually a medicine power, but the shamans, they were the one who had more than normal powers. They had multiple powers, and that was the difference.
Would the shaman and the medicine men ever come to blows? Was there ever ego that came into it or not?
They're the same thing. A medicine man and a shaman are the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Medicine man is, the word we use for when we talk about the Indian shamans.
Yeah. Okay,
A
that's good.
medicine woman or a medicine man is a shaman.
Okay. So there's a quote which I really liked. I think I got it from your site, and it's you quoting saying, "Medicine powers and spirits go hand in hand, and there can be no question that as a race, the Indians are born mystics, and it is their mystic consciousness in trance and vision which is the most impressive feature of their religious life." I love that quote. So what are your thoughts about having spent so many years with these incredible people and the way that they've been treated by the white fella, the white neighbor over the century or two? That must be very painful for you to have been alongside them.
Those spirit powers are for health and help. And those medicine men that carry those powers, they get help.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter what kind of laws and things you're going to pass, you're not going to get rid of them. They're gonna be able to survive no matter what you throw at them. Okay. So that was, Wallace Black Elk, he talks in his book a lot about all of the hardships he went through, especially when he went to school and you get punished for speaking your language and all of this kind of thing. And he survived. He survived all that indoctrination that they tried to impose on him. But he survived it because he went back home and was going to ceremonies.
Is this Wallace or Godfrey you're talking about?
Wallace. I'm talking about Wallace.
Yeah.
And Godfrey, when he was 13 and received a spirit helper, they took him out of school then. He didn't go to school anymore.
Okay.
May I jump to a question that's coming from Debbie? That's all right. Debbie, where is it? She said this at 8:30. I'm just jumping back in time, going through the comments, because here's the question. What do you do when you catch a spirit, and what does it mean to catch one? I think we're going back
to one. Yes. To catch one means you'll hear it. It'll come and it'll talk to you. You may not see it, and you may see it. It may appear before you as a bear and later turn into a human. But catching a spirit means they make contact with you. And once they do, then they'll tell you how to run your ceremonies, how to set up your altars. They do the teaching once they come. And you have to follow their instruction explicitly for your prayers to be answered, mainly, is the way to say it.
Can I give an example? Because I spoke to Pete this afternoon. He told me about this ceremony with the spirits, and then maybe you would comment on that. So I think you were actually present at this experience, at this ceremony. So our friend Peter had it wasn't a brain tumor, but he had a lesion, scar tissue from an old head injury or something like that, I believe. And they did I don't know who took him to see Godfrey, or he already.
Did.
You did.
I drove him. He was a student at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, Kansas, right. And I was there with an adjunctship to the anthropology department, again digging in their library for information for the two encyclopedias. So yes, I drove him to the reservation.
All right. So he said that you did a 5-stick ceremony, first of all, in order to ask the spirits if they could do a weepy ceremony, which is a healing ceremony for his brain tumor. And he said what he remembers is that when the spirits came in, he said they stomped so noisily around the room, just like they did with us with Godfrey.
Yeah.
And he said the way the altar had been laid out, the goods, which are they make goods out of little, what is a good come from? Like a squash dried out, and a rattle is made from it.
Right.
So these good rattles.
A skin, it's wrapped.
Yeah. they had been put on the altar in a very specific way. And he said that when the ceremony started and the spirits came in, he said the goods were literally flying around the room. And whilst it was pitch dark, he could see the little bits of like blue lightning where they were just flashing around the room. And he said with these goods, I don't know if the spirits were picking them up and running around with them, but he said he suddenly felt all up the left side, from his leg all the way up his arm and then up to his head. He said it was like the lightest touch of a feather, but it was the goods touching him and doing their healing work. So he said he stood up and prayed for his brain tumor to be healed, and which is when they started touching him and emitting flashes. And then Godfrey, who at the beginning of the ceremony, and this is a Chips family ceremony, I believe, and you can correct me after, but they wrap him in they tie his hands behind his back with sinew or animal sinew, and then wrap him in a carpet, and he's laid face down on the floor and then wrapped again with sinew. Impossible to get out of. And when the ceremony finished and the lights went on, Godfrey was sitting up, carpet rolled beside him, and the ball, like a perfect ball of wool, the animal sinew, was on the altar with both the ends meeting right inside, touching each other. And he said it was phenomenal. So what was your experience of that, and maybe your explanation on a metaphysical level of what goes on, because that's phenomenal?
Well, in order to do the Uwipi ceremony, it's called a bundle up ceremony. And yes, it is a particular ceremony that was came through the Chips family.
Okay.
And before you do that ceremony, you hold a 5-stick ceremony.
Yeah.
And those spirits come in and they will tell you how many nights of Uwipi ceremony you're to do for the healing.
Yeah.
The Uwipi spirits and the 5-stick spirits are different spirits.
Ah, okay.
They're not the same spirits. Godfrey used to tell me, those 5-stick spirits, they're coming in here and they're telling me not to pay any attention to those Uwipi spirits and be careful than the Uwipi spirits, you know. And so they, you know, the spirit tug of war thing was going on also.
Very funny. That implies there's a bit of ego in there with the spirit.
Really, the spirits have this kind of ego thing they got into. And yes, what happens is usually you also have to put a string of tobacco ties all the way around the altar. And it's 350 or 60 or whatever. And usually those are also rolled up in a ball sitting on the altar after you come out. But yes, they actually wrap him up in a canvas more than a rug.
Okay.
And, but his, you know, they tie the rug up or they tie the canvas up, but his hands are tied behind his back and tied up in a canvas. And then the spirits come in and release him from it, basically, because they can do anything they want to do.
So as well as all that going on, not only are they healing the physical form of Peter, but they're also freeing up Godfrey at the same time. And how long does that kind of last, that ceremony?
Usually about an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hour, maybe an hour and a half. Yeah. It's not real quick. There's a lot of songs that they sing to bring the Uwipi spirits in and things like that they go through. And you can hear Godfrey singing muffled in the you know, wrapped up canvas. And then at one point, all of a sudden, his voice is loud and clear, and he's sitting there with a drum drumming away.
I do have to tell anyone listening, it is the most powerful, amazing, amazing thing. And so you've written about these ceremonies in Spirit Talkers. People want to read more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with no one taking on these roles, you know, that's an incredible, my hat off to you, Bill, because that's an incredible legacy you have left for the Native American traditions. Really, thank you for that.
Well, I again, my point was stop assuming that they're not real. That's why I wrote that book.
Okay.
You can't prove they're real. You can't prove they're not real.
Yeah.
But you can sure come away with the assumption that they're real if you go to those ceremonies.
Yeah.
And all of those people who said that's primitive superstition, they've never stepped foot in a ceremony in their life.
No. Wow. So, how do you know, by the way, just backtracking, how do you know when a ceremony is finished and whether a ceremony has been successful? How do the spirits communicate that to you, or as an observer or participator, how do you know?
They'll tell Godfrey.
Okay.
You know, I know of no ceremony that I've ever been to that Godfrey performed that wasn't successful. I never went to one that failed.
You probably wouldn't even contemplate it.
But I did go to one that he had a little bit too much to drink, and I had to carry him into the ceremony. So there were fun times too.
Very common form. So Pete was telling me that when we did our ceremony with Godfrey, the 5-stick ceremony, the night before they had the Shanupa pipe, which they loaded, and they had to ceremoniously hand that over to Godfrey. And it's something I've experienced before when I had, for a very short amount of time, I was in possession of an old weaving stick that belonged to Dan Chakunga, the Hopi. And somehow it had been brought to Glastonbury. Usually those things are meant to be burned with the body when the person passes. And somehow it had ended up in Glastonbury. So I was asked by Roy Littleson to take it back to a ceremony which we did in Peru, which I did. But the way it was handed over to me, Roy Littleson handed it over to me or entrusted it, was that he took the staff and he handed it to me once, takes it back, twice, 3 times, and then apparently on the 4th time, Godfrey took the pipe, and by taking it, that's acknowledging acceptance that the ceremony can go ahead. Is that correct?
That's the way you present a pipe.
Is there a word for that?
If you want a healing, you have to get a Shanupa, and fill it up, and take it to the medicine man, and state while you're there what you're asking for, and present it. He holds his hands out with his palms up, and you set it on his palm 4 times, and on the 4th time, if he grabs it, he'll do the ceremony. If he doesn't take it, he won't do it.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you smoke the Shanupa that you loaded.
Is that called a Shanupa ceremony, or?
No, that's called a presentation ceremony.
Presentation.
Yeah, it's a presentation ceremony. It's just a simple thing. I mean, it's not like, you have to sing certain songs to bring spirits in. No, it's just a simple asking. So
we did a simple form of that when Teo and I and you were at that ceremony in Australia. Mm-hmm. We had that group, and Pete loaded the Shanupa pipe, and you took it around. That was very beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And was that permission for the ceremony we were doing for Time of the Sixth Sun to take place? Or was that more of a unity thing?
I have a Shanupa.
Oh wow, it's a beautiful cover.
It sits in this bag.
Wow. And
Peter has a Shanupa also. So we're both pipe bearers.
Yeah.
We're not shamans.
Yeah,
but we know how to use that pipe to make prayers, and those prayers get answered.
Nice.
So they're magical instruments for me.
They are. They are indeed. Whose pipe did we use in Australia? Was it your pipe or Pete's Shanupa?
I think it was Peter's. I didn't bring mine to Australia.
Very powerful.
Very powerful. And it's a specific way that you have to pass it. It's very much ritualized, isn't it? As you pass the Shanupa from person.
Even the filling of the Shanupa. I mean, there's so many pinches. You take a pinch of the tobacco, and it's not real tobacco. It's the tobacco mixture that they use. It's mostly what they call willow bark is in there. And it's not the bark of the willow. It's that green layer between the bark and the, tree. Okay. And they scrape that green layer off and dry it, and that's what they call dried willow. And it's usually 4 parts of dried willow to 1 part of tobacco in the mixture. And then there's some osha root and things like that peppered in there. But
It's nice to know. I've got some very close up of Pete doing that.
There's a certain way to, take that pinch of tobacco offering and you hold it and you make a prayer to a certain direction. You start in the west and then you make a prayer to the north with the next pinch, and then to the east and then to the south, and then you make a prayer up, and then you make a prayer down, and then you make a prayer all the way around. And by the time you put that last pinch in, it should just be to the top of the bowl.
Beautiful. We filmed that whole ceremony on quite a few cameras, so we might put that up on the site in the future, Teo. I think that'd be a really nice thing to put up.
Yeah, if they're happy with us to do that. I've got a question here from Sharon, if I might bring that in. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
She says, please ask William what he understands to be the significant differences of being a shaman connecting with spirits and medicine, as opposed to someone communicating with spirit guides, etc., as a channel and a healer. Put another way, can you only take the title of shaman when you have been chosen and initiated?
Good question.
Yes. Well, usually when I think of a channeler, it's somebody who the spirit comes to and talks through. Usually a channeler will, again, go deep into their heart, and the spirit will come in and the voice will change. It won't be the same voice that comes out of that person's mouth. And yes, if some people have a healing ability because they have channeled a spirit, that spirit is helping that channeler to be a healer, basically. So yes, in that sense, they are also a shaman. So there's no difference between a shaman who catches a spirit and uses it for healing and a channeler who has contact with a spirit and can heal also. They're the same thing.
Yeah. We complicated it too much, don't we?
We complicate it with all our different words for it and all of our, thoughts about it. But it's very, very simple at the bottom, but also very, very hard to follow that path.
Yeah.
And do what that spirit tells you to do.
When we sat around that kitchen table, when we were at Zaka Lake, we had squares of coloured cloth of the 4 directions, red, black, yellow, white, and we had long bits of string and piles of tobacco. So do you want to explain what we did and how many ties we did? It's a nice thing for people to learn.
Those are called prayer ties. Some people call them tobacco ties because that's what they put in. There's a little pinch of tobacco in a square cloth and fold all the corners together and then wrap it on a string, tie it on a string. And the altar display requires so many tobacco ties to be made for that altar. Individuals also are required to make these prayer ties before they come in. So on one sense, it is like you practicing making prayers over and over and over and over and over and over. You're not supposed to talk. You're supposed to sit there, completely silent and say a prayer from your heart with each one that you tie on. And those spirits, then they come in. When they come in, they read each one of those tobacco ties. Wow. And they'll know if you were spaced out on one.
Wow.
And we're talking to somebody on one when you did that one.
I think we did break the rule a couple of times.
You can't get past these spirits. They know everything.
Well, you have an incredible reverence for them, and I'm feeling that. I mean, I know how powerful they are.
Yeah.
This is beautiful, beautiful, sacred information. Have you got any more questions from the audience, Teo? I've got a few more, but
lots of things. Lots of people just commenting how lovely this is, and thank you for this information. And I would never know about these things otherwise. And
you wouldn't.
there's some lovely stuff here. That was the one from Sharon. But no, if you've got questions that you would like to ask Bill, oh, here we go. Pamela's put one up straight there at the bottom. How do you see these ceremonies being kept alive, or do you think they will change their form if nobody steps up to take them? It just seems sad to let all this die out.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it is dying out. I think it's just the opposite. In fact, is a former good friend of mine named Michael Harner, who was an anthropologist from Harvard,
And author.
he went to South America for his dissertation work among a tribe in the Amazon. And after the third or fourth time he went back there, they put him through a ceremony and he got educated by the spirits, basically. And he came back and he left academia and he set up a foundation for shamanic studies. And he got to the core of it all, down to the very simple basics of what you need to do to contact the spirit.
Yeah.
And so for years now, he has been training people through that foundation. There are hundreds of people who are white or black or whatever who went through his courses who are now doing shamanic healing.
Yeah.
So I don't
beautiful.
I think it's spreading more than ever, basically.
Yeah.
And it's just not among the Indians, it's among
So
all human beings.
I think that's what Pamela was referring to. I think she was talking about when you said none of Godfrey's children took up that incredible gift.
Just because Godfrey's children haven't stepped forward, that doesn't mean that this is dying out at all.
Yeah, I agree.
And here's the other thing. If that ceremony dies, if nobody is left in 5 years to do the Uwippi ceremony, you can still go on a vision quest and get the ceremony. The ceremony never disappears. The ceremony is always in the spirit world. So just because it disappears from the planet doesn't mean it's gone. It's just still there hanging out in the spirit world. And you can go and get it and do it.
I remember Aquala from the Havasupai saying that the new sentinels now on the planet who are taking up these old stories, the old healing and ceremonies. So there are a lot of white, black, whatever we want to call us. So there's a lot of our tribal family in the West who are going out across the planet to find out what these old ceremonies are. Because as I understand it, as we come closer to that gate at the end of time, that we have stories and ceremonies to sustain us. So it does seem that it's a lot of white folk going out there.
No, I think
beautiful.
I think it's on the increase myself. I think we're going to return to a very animistic view of the world, in which we understand that everything has a spirit. I mean, the rocks have a spirit, the trees have a spirit, they communicate, all of that. And when we get to that point, we'll start taking care of this planet really good.
I think so. I love your vision, and we've been talking about that a lot, and I think that is visibly what's happening. We're seeing it slowly, but we're seeing it.
Yep, I think we're being pushed that way.
Yep, and even the French Prime Minister the other day, I don't know if you saw, he has stepped on board with Ecocide, which was Polly Higgins, an English lawyer who was fighting for the planet to have rights. And he's one of the first countries, I believe, to stand up and say it should be a crime for any company to pollute the rivers and the land, and it will now be an offence. Or if once it's made ecocide around the world, it will be an offence to pollute the planet. And I think that's fantastic.
I think it's going to stop, and I think it'll take us probably 2 generations to clean up the mess that's here.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think of the new kids coming through?
The what?
The new kids who seem born in the last 20 years, kids who seem much more evolved. It's a new kind of child coming through, definitely.
They sure like those phones.
They sure do.
That's all I do. They really stay glued to those babies.
Yeah.
But that change can come through what they see out there on the internet.
Well, it seems like they're the first generation to have come through where they were born literally with mobile phones in their hands. So
Yeah.
it's changed the way the brains work, and there's a lot there. We've got a fascinating young boy coming on Monday who is exceptional and probably reflective of how exceptional a lot of the kids are these days, but we don't understand them.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's very.
I have high hopes for him. I really do. Yep.
Yeah, I do too. So I was going to leave some time for you to answer one question, which you said it might take you a bit of time, but it was something about, because I've totally lost my place of prompts. But so generally, what is involved in a healing ceremony, Bill? So does it vary from tribe to tribe? Are the fundamentals the same? What is involved in a healing ceremony that you haven't already talked about?
Well, I can't really tell you what is involved in every healing ceremony because every healing ceremony is different. I mean, even when Godfrey was doing healing ceremonies, the spirits would tell him to do different things for that particular ceremony. So normally they will come in and administer healing, and they also, at least with Godfrey, they would usually have you take a medicine. He would have usually he had a white root medicine that he used, and the spirits had directed Godfrey to this white root medicine years earlier. They had told him where it was to be located. It was in a certain area on the reservation, and that he was to take his pipe and go over there and get that medicine when it was totally dark. So that's what he did. He took his pipe, he went over to that area of the reservation, and he stumbled around in the dark with his shanupa. And that plant glowed.
Wow.
And so he knew he recognized the plant because he saw it glowing. And that's the plant he took, and that's the medicine he got. Well, that white root medicine, they use the root. But that root will go 5-6 feet down in the ground. And they have to dig that medicine out without damaging the root.
What's the root? Sorry.
Root.
A root. Sorry.
The root.
Yeah.
The bottom part that goes in the ground.
Yeah.
That goes down 5 or 6 feet. You don't just go there and pull it out.
No.
You go there and you dig down the side of it 5 or 6 feet until you can pull it out without breaking any of it. And if you break it on the way out, it's worthless. It won't work because that's the way you were told to get it.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it the way the spirits say, it doesn't work. That's it.
It's a rule for our lives, really, to be meticulous, to really pay attention to detail.
Yep. Yeah, you definitely have to pay attention to details with those spirits, and you have to follow what they say. You have to be able to listen close enough to hear it.
I wonder how many other aspects of our lives they are around watching us, and it is ceremony, even though we don't feel it's ceremony. Maybe I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I don't know either.
No. So, also, what
they're a mystery.
When I asked that question, I did sort of mean also which different tribes you had met, and like different healing ceremonies. So I know you worked with Rainbow, something I can't remember his name now.
Ernie Rainbow.
Ernie Rainbow, Apache.
Ernie Rainbow, he was actually the first shaman I met. I met him before I met Wallace, way back maybe around 1973.
Okay.
And he had been in prison. And after he got out of prison, he went into the Northern California wilderness area and lived in the wilderness by himself for 7 years.
Wow.
And he came out altered.
Yeah, squeaky clean.
And so, yes, he was the first shaman I met. And I met many, many, many other shamans just through my travels with Wallace. And that I went to different ceremonies. I went to a number of peyote ceremonies done in California on the Navajo reservation and so forth.
Okay.
But those were just me attending those ceremonies and meeting those shamans and being allowed to come to the ceremony, basically.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I learned in each of those ceremonies, but my major learning and understanding came from the time I actually spent around Wallace, Blackout, and Garbage Ships.
Yeah. And do you have a little pot? You mentioned, again, I can't remember his name, Matto, that's shaman. He gave you a little pot. Do you want to share that with us, the story in the pot?
This is, the spirits can do anything kind of thing. This is a puck.
Oh, okay. It's a puck.
It's a little puck.
Yeah. Like for hockey.
Yeah. Looks like a hockey puck. Not big.
Mm.
And inside, there's an arrangement of magnets that Matto did. He put it in there a certain way. He couldn't look at it when he did it because it altered his vision as he was doing it.
What did he put in?
Magnets arranged in a certain way. Okay. Because we live in an electromagnetic.
Yeah.
And I am of the opinion, after many years with these shamans, that we're actually in a movie. This is like a 3D hologram movie, but it's solid. So it's different than, a regular movie. It's got solids in it. And these spirits, they can come in and they can edit this movie, basically, is what's happening. So all of these things that we see that are material are actually manifesting every second. There's little atoms and stuff are running around in there, and it's all being projected in here.
Mm.
So this little puck, Otto made for me, in which it's my demonstration that we're in a movie. And what I do is I put this puck on a floor, and I have someone stand to the right. I usually try to get people about the same size. I have someone stand to the right of this puck, about 4 or 5 feet away. Someone stands on the left side, 4 or 5 feet away. And the person on the right, you'll see, is a little larger than the person on the left. Then they change places. And now the person on the right is larger than the person on the left. So their size change as they move through this field.
Yeah. So optical illusion or
and this field is duplicated here on the earth in what we call vortexes. And there is a vortex right north of Ashland, Oregon, between Ashland, Oregon and Grants Pass on Interstate 5. And it's a tourist trap. You go into this vortex thing. They don't really know what it is, but they have a cement sidewalk out there like 30 feet long. And they put a level on it, and it's a perfectly level cement sidewalk, and the same thing happens. 2 people on the end, one's taller than the other, they switch places, the other person becomes taller than the other. And you can see this right there in front of your eyes.
It is like magnets. There's a place in Ireland, and many years ago I went there, and it's a slope going down into a tunnel, and it's quite a steep incline. Mm-hmm. And as you're driving down it, it feels like you're going uphill. Things are going, it's a total optical illusion.
Yes, it's completely at this vortex site in Oregon. They have it looks like a level kind of board going kind of up, and they put a ball on it and it goes down. They take a broom and stand it in the center of the vortex, and it'll stand up by itself.
Wow.
We know so little, don't we?
And scientists have been there to study it, but they don't know what's going on.
I love what you said. I love the fact that the spirits are the editors. They're the naughty editors.
They definitely have fun with us, I'll tell you that.
I'm going to be having words with them.
Because we're probably pretty dumb in their sight.
Yeah. So sort of one of my last questions is, did you ever go beyond your own belief system of what is possible and get your brains totally scrambled, so that what you were seeing in front of your very eyes defied belief, as it were. Do you have any memories of anything like that working with shaman, like your sort of pop thing?
No, yeah, and that was the other thing, you know. People always ask me, you know, well, are you training to be a shaman? Are you a shaman? And it's like, I didn't come here to do that.
Yeah.
I came here to get rid of the myth that
Yeah.
it's primitive superstition.
Yeah.
And so the spirits haven't come around and you know, tapped on my shoulder or taken me out into, you know, space or whatever. But about, I think 5-6 years after I had met Wallace, I got a call from a student over at the University of Missouri in Columbia, and he was having possession problems. He was getting possessed, and he didn't, you know, and nobody there on the anthropology faculty could, you know, deal with it or tell him what to do, and they told him to call me. So he called me up, and I said, okay, well, let's meet. And so we went and met halfway between Kansas City and Columbia, Missouri, and at this person's house that we knew and so forth. Anyway, you know, he told me about this. We talked about it a little, and I said, okay, just, you know, let's do it. And you go into the trance. And he was sitting in one of those recliner chairs, and he was sitting upright, and he, you know, went into this trance, and then his body started shaking, which is a common thing.
Yeah.
And it started shaking violently, so much so that it threw him back in the recliner, and he was sitting, you know, straight, you know, horizontal to the floor, just flipping around like a fish in there.
Wow.
And then this really, you know, deep, dark voice came out of him.
Wow.
And this spirit, I recorded it. I have a recording of it.
Wow.
And this spirit started talking to me. And the whole conversation was to me, which kind of freaked me out. You know, I
didn't want to be drawn into this.
And it was like, oh my. But during that conversation, he told me that in my last lifetime, I was a Lakota shaman named Hollowhorn.
Wow.
Well, I thought that was really strange that I come into this life and I'm working with Lakota shamans.
Yeah.
But that I was a Lakota shaman in my last life named Hollowhorn, and I went in and looked up this Hollowhorn. Well, this Hollowhorn had saved Nick Blackout. Nick Blackout had been wounded in a battle early on as a young guy, and he went to Hollowhorn, and Hollowhorn healed him.
Wow.
So I had the honor of having saved the life of Nick Blackout in a former life.
And so interesting how you're in this life you've sort of come back into the same thing with the
right, but with a completely different goal.
Yeah. I love that.
Like this goal was more important than me just coming here and healing people.
Yeah. So
Basically,
that night, did that spirit go?
Yeah.
Did you have to acknowledge that?
Did I what?
Did you have to acknowledge that past life in order to? You said that's what the spirit was telling you.
That's what he said. I'm assuming that they usually don't come in and lie, so I'm just assuming it's true. I mean, I don't remember it.
Yeah.
I don't remember my past lives again because I'm not here to go into all of that, you know, ethereal kind of thing, and meeting with spirits and talking with spirits. I mean, I know enough good friends who have spirits who they keep me informed.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I don't need. They call me out and say, "But we were saying a prayer, and they came in and they said this and this about you," and it's like, okay.
Well, I highly recommend to everyone that this is an amazing, extraordinary book, and yeah, there you go. So, thank you. And is it available from that place that we don't mention, beginning with A?
No, it's good. So actually, if you go to spirittalkers.com, and there you can see the third link along. It says Spirit Talkers Contents Purchase. And actually, if you then click on Purchase, there's 4 different ways you can get Bill's book there. There's You can either, it says the paperback While They Last, signed by the author. Have you got, are those still available, Bill?
Those,
It's having a quick drink.
really quick, I have 50 copies left. Once those 50 copies are gone, the sale of that book will come off of my
Okay.
website.
All right. And then also you can get it.
So you can go find it on eBay. You can find it on Amazon.com, but it's not a popular book. I published 3,000 copies. I printed up 3,000 copies myself in 2012. I self-published it. Right. It's published by Prayer Efficacy Publishing. Prayer efficacy means the ability of a prayer to work.
So did you do 5 steps?
That you get what you pray for. Well, that name is the name of the foundation that we had for Godfrey Chips.
I remember.
It's called the Prayer Efficacy Foundation. When the spirits originally came to Wallace, to Godfrey, and told him in Lakota, he had a hard time translating that. And originally, before I came along, it was called organized religion.
Slightly different.
And so, organized religion means Catholicism, and so anyway, when I came along, we sat down for about an hour and talked it through, and we finally came up with Prayer Efficacy as should be the name of the foundation. So that's where it came from. And I couldn't get anybody to publish the book because
it's amazing. I remember.
Because I, in the book, declare that these powers are real. And then I give you all the backup for showing you why they're real. And all these people who's witnessed it all over time, for hundreds of years here in the United States and Canada. So
naughty boy telling the truth.
So they wouldn't touch it. I went first to University of Oklahoma Press, who puts out most of the books on Indians. And they sent it out for 3 reviewers. All 3 reviewers came back and said, publish this book. And they still wouldn't do it.
Wow.
At the last one, they said, no, we're not going to do it.
Well, you've got 49 left now, because I know this is going to be watched by so many people. You're going to sell out. So I just bought one while you were talking.
Yeah, well, you better go quick, because they're going to go quick.
I was going to say, will you get me one, because I want to gift that. It's a very, very special book. I want to gift those.
Okay, I'll save one for you. All right.
A signed copy this time. I didn't get that signed.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
you're going to have a hard time getting it for a while, because the ones that you see on Amazon and the ones you see on eBay, maybe there's 7 or 8, sites that have it. Well, they only have 3 or 4 copies. Yeah. So you're only talking about, 25, 30 copies on eBay and maybe 20 copies on Amazon, and then they're gone.
Yeah. We're not doing this or saying this.
And those dealers will have to order them. And they're printed on demand, so it doesn't take too long, I don't think, for them to get the orders. But most people who buy this next week are going to have to wait for it to be fulfilled. It won't be something they can go and order and pay for and get.
It is phenomenal information. Anyway,
I'll put the link up again here now in the comments. So you need to go to spirittalkers.com. and you can place your order. It's very fast. You can pay with PayPal. I just did it there while Bill was talking, because I really love a copy of this book.
And the other 3 are digital forms.
Yeah.
And that is the only place you can find it in digital form. You can't go online and find it being sold in digital form. You have to go to the spirittalkers.com if you want it in digital, like Kindle, Nook, whatever. PDF, I think is what the 3 are.
Yeah. They're all there. They're all there on spirittalkers.com. So you can go there. So let's just pull that up. So in case you can't see it in the comment, there is the website, www.spirittalkers.com. You can also see the other books Bill was referring to that he wrote, wmslion.com. If you go to spirittalkers.com, you're going to hit this website. There's a purchase button there, which is just underneath the word powers. It says purchase. Click that button. You can go there. And this is the book we're talking about, Spirit Talkers, North American Indian Medicine Powers by William S. Lyon. So thank you so much, Bill, for being with us. And if you've just joined us and you're wondering what this is all about, because there's so many people sharing these links for us, Time of the Sixth Sun is a beautiful 108-minute movie and an 8-part documentary series, and anybody can sign up to watch at the moment for a limited time for free. They just have to go to timeofthesixthsunlaunch.com, and we're doing a launch of this each Tuesday. So anybody that signs up will go into that launch the following Tuesday, but you can only go through it once, because that's the way that we otherwise we'll just have people watching it too many times. And in what we do ask is that we give the whole thing away for free. But if
there's the front cover sitting on my wall.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
It has been such a pleasure, Bill.
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoy it. Every time I get together with you, it's always been fun. So
yeah, I hope to sit with you again. I think you were one of the only people who didn't fall asleep when Kay and I showed the film when we arrived in Australia. Everyone was snoring away. That's so funny.
Well, don't tell anyone that.
It was very late.
It was late.
Yes, it was.
We were at the other side of the world. We were in the right time zone, but everybody in that time zone, it was very late.
It has been an honor. I hold you in really high place in esteem.
Near my heart too, my dear.
Yeah.
You and Theo both, for sure.
Blessings. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for sharing.
All
so
right.
for everyone else, we're going to be putting up a flyer tomorrow. If you just stay with us, Bill. Tomorrow morning, we'll put up a flyer. We've got a very special young lad joining us on Monday who's very special. I'm not going to say much more. Go to our website tomorrow and check out the flyer for him. But he's one of the new kids and is going to talk about how his brain is wired differently. And he's doing this to get a better understanding for the kids coming into the world now who are actually so misunderstood, labeled. So really exciting.
Really?
See you Monday.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, he's great. Lots of love. You stay with us, and thank you, everyone. Good night.
Bill, the comments are filling up here. I bought the book. I just bought the book. I just bought the book. So you're gonna have to get down the post office.
Well, it may take me 4 or 5 days then to get a copy.
That's right. There's no rush.
Okay.
Good night, everyone. We'll see you on Monday.
Night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.